So we made it through the first part of 5.3. Now we're on to get into the actual solving part. How do you solve a quadratic equation? By finding the square root. So finding the square root is good, and this is a suggestion, just like when we did linear combination. I suggested when to use substitution, when to use linear combination. I'm gonna suggest you use finding the square root when one variable is in the equation. So you're only going to have one x, and there's not going to be two x's. Two x's we'll deal with it in the next section, but there's one x that you can isolate by itself. So you can solve it like a basic equation, but these are going to be quadratic equations. So think about how we're going to get rid of that square. A basic example is x squared equals 9. Now, what you need to think about is getting x by itself, which it already is, and now we have to get rid of that square. Okay? All of it's the same basic solving except for that square. That square, the opposite of a square, the inverse operation of a square, is square root. So we're on a square root both sides of these equations. And what happens is that square and square root cancel each other out. And you're left with just x. Square root of 9 is 3. Now what you have to think about though is, going back to that x squared, what values can you plug into x to get you 9? Because 3 is not the only value. You have to remember also, negative 3 squared will add up to 9, or simplify to 9. So it's not just 3, it's going to be 3 and negative 3. Now one way you can write that to speed it up a little bit, if you want to put plus minus 3, that's also an acceptable answer. That's showing me that it's the positive and the negative 3. And if you think about the parabola going up and down, it crosses the x-axis, or most of the times across the x-axis 2 times. This is how we're getting our two solutions here. It's crossing 2 times. So that's kind of the connection between finding the square root and solving by graphing. Another example is x squared minus 4 equals 12. And like I said, it's the same equation solving. Get everything away from that x just like we have been. And now again, you have it just like before, x squared equals 16. Square root both sides. The square and the square root cancel out, so we're left with just x. And again, square root of 16 is nice. It's a perfect square, so it goes to 4. But we're going to have 4 and negative 4 as our answer. Okay, so remember, you're going to get both the positive and the negative. Okay, positive and negative. Now these two examples both ended up being perfect squares when we took the square roots. Okay, 5 plus x squared equals 16. Going through the same work, getting x by itself. X squared equals 11. So now hopefully you already see we're going to have a little bit of an issue here. Square rooting both sides. Square root of 11 is not a perfect square. Okay? So you have to think about factor trees, how we did the beginning of 5.3, because you're not allowed to give me decimals this section. If I get asked for an exact answer, you need to simplify this using your factor tree methods. Square root of 11 can't be simplified. Square root of 11 and negative square root of 11. Notice where the negative is. It's outside the square root, and those are our two solutions. Square root of 11 and negative square root of 11. Okay? 9 minus 2x squared equals 81. So going through this work, separate a little bit. Square root 9. Yeah, negative 2x squared equals negative 90. Watch your signs so we get positive 45. And the last step is to take the square root. Get everything away from the x. Everything away from the x, then you can take the square root. Now this time, square root of 45, you can do a factor tree. Square root 9, square root 5. The 9 goes to a 3. So the faster you can do your factor trees, the easier this is going to be. X equals 3 square root of 5 and negative 3 square root of 5. Okay, so there's our two answers for that. Okay, so if you can simplify it, you have to simplify it. I think there's one more example I'd like to show you in this video. Here we have 9x squared equals 10. So I'm going to divide by 9. Now, 10 over 9 doesn't divide evenly, okay? Put it in, I get a decimal answer, it can't be simplified. So you're going to leave it as 10 over 9. This is where you're going to have to rationalize the denominator sometimes, but you have to simplify just like we did it earlier in the section. Square root, square root. Square root of 10 over 9 is not nice. I'm going to break it up. Square root 10, square root 9. The 9 goes to a 3. Square root of 10, there's no factor tree, nothing you can do with it, so I'm going to leave it square root 10 over 3. X equals square root 10 over 3 and negative square root 10 over 3. Okay, the important thing here is that you remember two answers. Okay, remember there is a shortcut if you want to write it as plus minus square root 10 over 3. Either one of those are acceptable. I do prefer this one, and there's going to be a reason for it in the next video when you see it.